Hello and welcome to Base on Balls, presented by the UNeducated Network. My name is Brian Wilkinson and I'll be your host. Today we're going to be talking Hall of Fame inductions and the trade deadline. But first off, we're going to get started with the divisional standings. Today is August 1st. It means we have 2 months left in this regular season for baseball. We're coming down into the home stretch here. So here's how your divisional standings shape up as of today. In the American League East, you've got the New York Yankees on top of the Boston Red Sox by a half a game. In the American League Central, you got the Cleveland Indians on top of the Kansas City Royals by 2 games. In the American League West, the Houston Astros are on top of the Seattle Mariners by 16 games. And in the National League, you've got the Washington Nationals on top of the Miami Marlins by 14 games. In the National League Central, the Chicago Cubs are up on the Milwaukee Brewers by 2.5 games. And in the National League West, the Los Angeles Dodgers are up on the Arizona Diamondbacks by 14 games. For your wild card standings today, your games would be the Boston Red Sox versus the Kansas City Royals, with Seattle and Tampa Bay each 2.5 games back of trying to be in that wild card. And in the National League, you would have the Arizona Diamondbacks versus the Colorado Rockies, with the Milwaukee Brewers 5.5 games out of trying to make that wild card. All right. Over the weekend, we had Hall of Fame induction ceremony and festivities out in Cooperstown. So getting into those, we had the Today's Game Era Committee. These guys are focused on trying to bring in anybody with contributions to the game of baseball from 1988 on forward through the modern era. Their nominations for this year were longtime GM John Schuerholz and longtime Commissioner Bud Selig. For the players inducted in this year's Hall of Fame class, you got Tim Raines, Jeff Bagwell, and Ivan Pudge Rodriguez. Tim Raines played for 7 teams during his career. He was a 7-time All-Star and 3-time World Series champion. He won a single Silver Slugger and 1 NL batting championship. Had 808 stolen bases in his career, at the time 4th most in the history of baseball, to go along with an 84% success rate in stealing bases. So the man was able to come in, bat, and a wizard at running the bases, able to facilitate many runs for the teams that he played on. And you have Jeff Bagwell, played for the Houston Astros for the entirety of his career. He was a 4-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger. In 1994 was a unanimous MVP, and he's won 1 Gold Glove in his career. In 2005, at the back end of his career, led the Houston Astros to their only appearance in a World Series, and unfortunately was not successful in securing that championship. Pudge Rodriguez, a 14-time All-Star, 1-time World Series champion, an AL MVP, 13-time Gold Glove winner, and 7 Silver Slugger awards to his name. More than likely one of the most memorable moments from his particular career, the 2003 NL Wild Card Series, holding the ball up after the out at home plate against the Giants. The Marlins would go on to win the World Series that season, so kudos to him. Another important thing you may or may not remember from that 2003 postseason, Mr. Steve Bartman, infamous for becoming the scapegoat for the 2003 Cubs not making a World Series that year, reached out, tried to grab a foul ball, or a ball that he thought was in foul territory, and ended up interfering with the ability of Moises Alou, the Cubs outfielder, to catch the ball, and subsequently became one of the most targeted fans in quite possibly the history of sports. Cubs fans were blaming him left and right for the Cubs dropping the rest of that series, which they had a lead in 3-1, mind you. So I personally don't believe that this man had really anything to do with the Cubs losing out on that series. But nonetheless, it remains that he is going down in sports history as one of probably the most infamous fans in the history of at least American sports, if not sports in general. This past month, the Chicago Cubs gave him a 2016 World Series ring in order to attempt to bring a little bit of closure to that saga and that scenario. So that's it. That's a nice high note for him. All right. Moving on to the this year portion of today's show, the trade deadline. So as everybody knows, the trade deadline was July 31st at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So a lot of moves made by a lot of contenders yesterday, specifically. We'll start off with the Houston Astros acquisition of lefty Francisco Liriano. A lot of speculation around that is that they're going to bring him out of the bullpen. He's going to be their left-handed go-to guy out of the bullpen for the remainder of this season and going into their postseason run. But that was the only move that Houston made this trade deadline. A lot of people were looking for them to make at least another move, maybe add another lefty arm in that bullpen, or maybe try to get a fourth or fifth guy in a rotation. They were not able to come to terms on any of those deals. So we'll see how this plays out for them going into the postseason, particularly with all of the men that they have on the disabled list right now. They have a lot of injuries in that squad. Hopefully they can get healthy in these last 2 months and make their nice push for October. The good thing for them is they have a 16-game lead in their division, so more than likely they are getting into the postseason, regardless of what happens in these final 2 months. Kansas City, the Royals went out and added an extra bat in the form of Melky Cabrera. Washington went and picked up closer Brandon Kintzler from Minnesota Twins, so hopefully he can come in and be the ninth inning piece for them to help them put away games, which is so important in October. The Boston Red Sox, in their chase after the New York Yankees, won the sweepstakes for Mets closer Addison Reed, who was a super valuable acquisition at the time. They had 5 or 6 different teams bidding for this guy, and Boston went ahead and locked him up. The Cubs went and added a package deal for closer Justin Wilson and catcher Alex Avila from the Detroit Tigers. Justin Wilson obviously in there to try and help close up games for them in the aftermath of dealing Aroldis Chapman back to the Yankees, and then bringing in Alex Avila as a veteran presence to help backstop Wilson Contreras, who's having a phenomenal season, but they had to part ways with their backup catcher earlier in the season, so they needed a guy to come in and be a solid presence behind Contreras over there. The Colorado Rockies also went and made an upgrade behind the plate, acquiring Jonathan Lucroy from the Rangers, so trying to bolster their offensive numbers from behind the plate. They've been pretty weak, close to last in the league in runs produced and stats of that nature from their backstops, so hopefully Jonathan Lucroy can come in and bring in some run support for them, trying to make their push in this wild card game and trying to get through the postseason. Probably the biggest winners in terms of just sheer numbers this trade deadline have to be the Yankees. They went out and they've acquired 4 pitchers, 2 bullpen pitchers and 2 starting guys added into that rotation. They are in full win this year swing mode. They went out and at the deadline acquired Jamie Garcia from the Twins to fill in a backside rotational starting position, as well as Sonny Gray from the Oakland Athletics, who could quite possibly come in and be either a number 1 or number 2 guy in that rotation, depending on whether Masahiro Tanaka ever finds his baseball again. He did come out and pitch a very quality start, 14 Ks in his last start, but so far Tanaka has been less than an ace this season along, so hopefully those upgrades are going to make the Yankees quite the formidable opponent. They score runs very easily, and then if you've got this type of pitching, they have over plenty pitchers to choose from going into this postseason. That's always a plus. The more pitching you can have, the better your odds are of winning in October. And then the possible other biggest steal of this trade deadline, the Los Angeles Dodgers acquiring Yu Darvish from the Texas Rangers. He'll be starting in place of Clayton Kershaw while he is injured, and then Kershaw will come back and be the ace on that staff, and you'll have Yu Darvish as the number 2 guy going in the postseason. The Dodgers are 74-31 in the regular season so far. They don't have much to worry about in terms of getting into the playoffs, but come playoff time, Darvish is a established starter. He's a proven guy in the playoffs, and they got him fairly cheap. They only dealt 3 mid-range prospects from their system over to Texas in order to get him. He is a rental. He will be eligible for free agency at the end of this season. But all in all, a fantastic trade for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And right now, I don't know who in the National League is going to beat them. Just with the addition of Yu Darvish, Clayton Kershaw coming back off of his injury, and the sheer amount of runs that this lineup is putting up this season, these guys may just cruise straight through the National League into the World Series. I mean, at this point, that's what it looks like. They are the undisputed best team in baseball right now, and they just went and added probably one of the best upgrades that you could have found at this trade deadline. So they are going to be a formidable powerhouse. But that's going to be it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the show, remember to drop a like, subscribe, comment if you have something you want to say, if you have some interesting trade deadline news or something you want to hear in a future show. Go ahead and drop us a comment, and we'll be sure to get back to you. And we'll see you in the next one.